Hello and welcome to Tartan Touchdown, Scotland's conversation with the world of American football. Tonight we're really living up to that statement with four guests who are close-ish to home, but they're well on their way to the next year's World Championships in Dusseldorf. Now, to manage such a mega pod this evening, we're bringing back an old format, which is our chat show style. We did this previously for the WFFL finals. We've actually got four guests this evening. Those of you who are watching on YouTube will maybe notice it's just myself and two others at the moment. So we'll have a little break midway through, and actually Sarah is going to tag in and bring in our next two guests. So to kick us off, do some introductions. We've got a man who actually has a special place in Tartan Touchdown history. Is actually the first interview that Dan and I did on the predecessor to the show, and really kind of set us up for what would properly become Tartan Touchdown. He's one of Europe's most feared blitzers, plays a bit wide receiver as well, and that's what we've seen so far. I don't know how his arm is. We'll maybe find out, but more on that later. Liam Harper. How are you, Liam?
Good evening. I'm very well, thanks. Doing good. Just want to say a big thank you to yourself for having me on again and having us on, and also to you and Dan for coming down to the camps during the summer as well. Doing that filming and giving some of that behind the scenes for the people back home watching, and obviously something for us as players and coaches and staff that we can look back on as well. Good memories. So yeah, thanks for doing that.
Absolutely, really appreciate that. And there's a couple of things maybe that we saw from that trip back in July that we'll bring out as we go through our discussion of the tournament. As I mentioned, we do have two guests on the pod this evening, and there's a man with quite a story to tell. He's a multi-time national champion with London Smoke, also recently returned from a fourth place finish at Champions Bowl in Prague, and of course he is the GB captain. He's been part of the setup since 2019. Charlie Williams. Charlie, how are you?
Very good. Thanks for having me, Gav. And like Liam said, I also want to thank you for growing the exposure of the GB program. I think it can only help us to attract more talent. And like Liam said, it's great to have things to look back on with fond memories.
Absolutely. It's been great fun over the past few months, obviously culminating in the Euros, and that's very much the focus of this pod for each of our guests this evening, is talking through the successes of both our men's and women's GB programs. But of course, I'll be kicking off very much focusing on the men's side of things. But before we get to the tournament itself, I guess there's maybe a bit of an elephant in the room that we want to talk about. Charlie, you recently made an announcement on social media that you'll be stepping away from GB team after, as you mentioned, 6 years of success with the team. Do you maybe want just to tell us a bit more about your decision?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, announced on social media, that wasn't the first time I announced it. My wife found out first, then the head coach, and then the squad, and then a week later, thought it fair to let everyone know. So obviously a very difficult decision. I mean, there's nothing I like more than the brotherhood and the friendships of the GB program, something I'm going to miss enormously. But the reality is I've been playing on borrowed time in the sense of work and family commitments. My wife has been amazingly supportive to enable me to play for as long as I have. But, the truth is I have a 2 and a 5-year-old who have currently started a new school in a different city, and I'm only seeing them on weekends. Plus, business I've been working on is reaching pretty critical stage, and there's no way I can give my wife another year of 10, 12 extra weekends as on top of smoke, fully away. So with a very sad heart, it's the logical decision for me to step away now. But what I hope to do is support the GB program however I can, whether it's occasional attendances or some scouting work or tape or any other review. Then I really hope to stay involved as much as it's possible.
So I think that's fantastic to hear. And I think we've seen that obviously when it comes to these tournaments, there's only 12 players that can actually step onto the field, but increasingly there is that army of support. I think the women's squad had 7 or 8 different coaches at this tournament. So, it really does take a village to build the success of both programs. So I'm sure that's going to be massively appreciated for the program, whatever capacity you can provide. Liam, I guess, as a teammate of Charlie's for several years with GB, I guess, how do you feel about losing one of your fellow captains?
Yeah, it's not just losing a fellow player; it's losing a friend that's I've spent a lot of time with at camps and on the field and off the field as well. I think Charlie knows how fond I am of him, and we've had conversations, since the Euros about it. I mean, I think the program is in a much stronger, better place because of Charlie's play on the field, but also what he's brought off the field as well. I think we are a much kind of smarter team and a smarter program because of the things that he's brought in over the past 6+ years that he's been part of the program. And those of us in the program will know what those impacts are. It's been on the field, simplifying the game in some ways, but also making it a lot more complex as well in other areas, and making us think about the game in a different way. And personally, I've benefited a lot from being around Charlie, playing with Charlie. Obviously, being a receiver and playing on offense with him made me such a much better player. But he's also made me a much better blitzer as well, because I've had to go up against him for 4 or 5 hours a day at these camps, and he's normally got the best of me. And it's made me a better player because of that. I've had to become a much better blitzer to be able to keep up with him. But yeah, I know how much he's admired and respected by everyone in the team, and I'm sure they've sent him messages and spoken to him about that. So yeah, it's going to be strange for Charlie a bit not to be coming to these camps as frequently, and it's going to be strange to be at them without him, because other than Silver Lions camps over the years, Charlie wouldn't be at those ones, some of those silvers only, but every single other camp that we've had, he's been there. I don't think I've ever seen you miss one, except when I think you came up to a Saturday of a camp in 2023 and then had to leave that night because your wife was giving birth. This shows the commitment, I think, of
Gave birth on the
program.
Sunday,
Yeah,
8 a.m.
exactly.
I got back to London at 4 a.m.
Yeah, so it's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm hoping it's not the last time that we'll play on the same field, but we'll see.
Absolutely. And I think, maybe just kind of speaking to that as well, I think in terms of, my time in flag, I've played from 2003 to 2018. And then it's only really in the last couple of years I really started to get back into it following it in a big way. So the first time I came across Charlie is watching the Hornets play the Smoke in the 2023 final. And I think that the Hornets are cruising, I think 3 scores up in that game. And the Smoke just came roaring back with a furious comeback, which I'm sure my pals from the Hornets will be happy to say that they've avenged more recently. But yeah, I think that the memory of that game was actually seeing both quarterbacks in that game, both yourself and Nicky, just flat out in the field after the end of the game, because it's 2 players that have given their all. And I think, thinking ahead now to this year's Euros tournament, and just the resiliency that we've seen in this team is just incredible. Charlie, you've been a big part of that, but obviously the rest of the team as well. So yeah, I think before we go any further, just really say thank you for everything that you've done for GB. Thank you for everything you've done for the sport in the UK. And I think we probably should recognise as well, thank you to Mrs. Williams, because you're right. I think many of us out there have partners, that's wives, husbands, boyfriends, girlfriends, family that support us and sometimes need to tolerate us quite a bit in our passion for the sport. So yeah, just want to express that gratitude as well.
Well, thank you very much. I mean, the reality is we do it because we enjoy it. That's why we do 4 or 5 hours on the motorway to get to camps, and that's the whole weekend. We do it because we really enjoy it. So that gratitude definitely goes both ways.
Absolutely. Well, no, thanks for that. But with that all being said, we do have a tournament to talk about as well. So, I guess for maybe just kind of setting the scene for people who are kind of catching up with the GB program specifically, it kind of came into 2025 off the back of last year's Worlds in Lahti, where the team finished in 10th place. It's probably not reflective, I think, where everyone wanted to be. So then coming into this year, there's quite a lot of change in terms of the setup, with the change over in coach's role. And then even in the squad, we'd seen a number of new faces entirely, with likes of Ozzy, Isaac Harding making their debuts in the team. And of course, had Jack making return, Joe also coming back into the fold. What were your expectations headed into the Euros? Maybe start with you, Charlie.
Sure. I mean, you mentioned a lot of change. Some, let's say, really positive, some negative. I was delighted to be working with Nick Keese. I think he's a great coach and friend and good to work with. Some of getting Jack back, brilliant. I'm not sure why he wasn't in Finland, but wow, he proved how good he was again. Certain things I think have really improved in the program, how open the selection was. Perhaps personally, I would have liked the selection to wrap up a little bit earlier to get more time with the selected team. Perhaps you pick 15 or something. Particularly if you're going to install a new offense, we need time with that with the right people. So this was the first time we're running not only a brand new offense, some of my plays persisted, but certainly not what I'm used to. And also the first time I'm playing with someone else calling the plays. So that's a major adjustment. But, we showed success in the camps and success in the tournament. Yeah, going in, really excited with the squad and the new players. I think the youth that we've got now really show that they deserve to be there and will only improve.
Absolutely. And Liam, similar question to yourself. Obviously, the defense, we'd seen one of the features of the Worlds, and I know we've, I guess, almost made a meme now of your sack against Spain in Finland. But there's multiple occasions where they've made clutch plays, a new addition. In fact, someone who was called up late in Aussie when we made the trip to camp. So maybe looking at the defensive side of the ball in particular, what was your kind of thinking heading into France?
Yeah, I think personnel-wise, really strong. It was great to see Ozzy and Isaac in the squad. Like mentioned, Silver Lions a bit earlier, and I think when it was me, Ozzy, Isaac, and Ollie on the field at any point, that's four of the five defenders on the field had played in the Silvers, in the past few years. I think it just shows the strength of that kind of development program and people coming through that. But yeah, I mean, we knew we had the personnel, we knew we had the scheme, and we know we were led by Coach Andrew Gibson. So we knew we had everything in place to do really well at the tournament in terms of how prepared we are, how detailed we are as a defense. But then we also have people who can make plays. And I think we showed that at the tournament. We'll go through it, I'm sure, when we talk about some of the games. Yeah, expectations overall were, obviously you never say what your ultimate outcome is, which is, everyone wants to win the tournament, but you focus on how you get to that point. You don't talk about, like, this is what we're going to do. This is the goal. But I think one goal that we probably had to set for ourselves was to make sure that we qualified for the Worlds next year. I think that was the minimum expectation in my mind, that we go to Paris and we make sure that we finish in the top six, or top seven, and then it turned out we had to make sure we finished in the top six, which we did. So yeah, that was, for me, was the expectations were high because I knew we had such a good team, not just on defense but offensively as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess that as we start to move on to the tournament, that was one of the really interesting wrinkles about the Euros. Of course, the usual medals are on the line, and that's what everyone wants to do, ideally, to get onto that podium. But there are now the raised stakes of finishing in that top six and making sure that you can get onto the World Championships, and then hopefully a crack at getting your way to the Olympics as well. So as we said, that's one of the requirements, is getting into the quarterfinals, ideally winning that. And spoiler alert, you managed that. But even for the ranking games, it took on that extra value for the teams that lost at the first hurdle in the knockouts. So I guess thinking about the draw, and certainly when myself and Dan made that trip to camp, one of the big focuses for yourselves that weekend was on the Spain game. Obviously, you're in a group with Austria, the top seeds, and then with Spain, who are a team that, although GB had beaten them at the past two tournaments, it's both one-score games, very tight. And moving on to the tournament specific now, that proved to be another really difficult encounter. So unfortunately, probably not as familiar with the specifics of this one because it wasn't on the stream, but certainly 19-6 down at halftime, it was looking tough, really. Charlie, do you maybe want to kind of talk us through the Spain game?
12-0 down to start, same as Denmark, if I recall correctly. Maybe what I'm about to say, not everyone will agree with, but personally, I think when we over-prepare for a team, it gets us believing that, let's say, unusual offensive plays will have success. And you look at a team, you think, oh, this really special new play will work. And personally, I think, no, just use our best plays. I know how to read them against cover 2, cover 3, man, it doesn't matter. So just call our best plays. And I think we had a similar experience at the start of the Denmark game when we've looked at tape of how they play against other teams, not how they play against us. And maybe we stick to our best things, we come out firing. So what was great is Nick and the whole offense made real strong adjustments. What we thought they were going to do, some of which they did do, some of which they didn't. How they blitzed 2 quarterback was not what we expected them to do. So actually we should call a lot more of it. They were only sending 1 as an example of something we adjusted. But we missed the first two, but there was absolutely no doubt on anyone on the GB sideline that we were going to come back and win this. And, we scored the next four and knelt the fifth. So we definitely appreciate the defense keeping us in the game. And I think we got one or two interceptions. Liam, you'll know more than me. And then offense never looks back. We go back to our kind of core plays and we just start thumping touchdown after touchdown. So there are some pretty great moments. Definitely real elation at the end of that one. We knew how important it was. If we lost that, there's a real chance then all the goals we talked about could be out the window. And it was close. We knelt at the end, and it meant a lot. Our team never broke, and I was particularly happy for Nick that he starts his GB career 1-0. I think he actually started 3-0, but really happy for him, especially.
Yeah. Absolutely. And Liam, Charlie's already kind of alluded to that. So trailing 19-6 at the half, you then come out and I think there's only one more score for Spain in the second half, giving the offense that platform to fuel that comeback. So was there anything particular that was said in that halftime huddle to turn things around?
I think it was, trust the game plan and trust the process. I think they were doing everything on offense that we expected them to do in terms of the plays they were running, the scheme they were running. And it just came down to that in the first half. The quarterback made 2 excellent throws and 2 excellent catches on a couple of their deep sort of touchdowns. That's going to happen. But we knew that we had the right game plan in place in the second half, that we didn't need to panic. We didn't need to worry. We didn't have to change anything. We just carry on doing what we were doing. The offense started with the ball, scored. So it was actually 20-6 at half. So score, and then I think got the 2-point conversion to make it 20-14. And then like their very first play of their drive, because you say it wasn't on the stream, so, people probably haven't seen this, but I tip a pass and it's up in the air for what feels like forever. And thankfully Max Everlint is underneath it at the halfway line, and he catches it like a punt returner doing a fake, like a fair catch. And then we get, first and short at the half as an offense, and we go and tie the game on that possession. So the game turned around really quickly. So there was never any doubt in my mind that we didn't have the ability to do that. We talked about expectations at the start, and my expectation for this game was that it was going to be another super close game, because it has been the past 2 years. It's obviously been a 1-point game in the end. Again, Max was there to break up the XP when they went for that at the end of their last drive. So yeah, that was the feeling at halftime. Was always, we're fine, and we can, we've got the plan in place. Both sides of the ball will go and execute. And to be honest, you could see Spain wilt under the pressure. As soon as we tied that game up and they came back out with the ball, they were very nervy, because they were very loud, very chirpy early on when they were scoring. I've never seen them quite as hyped as that, and they were purposely being very energetic. They weren't being aggressive or anything like that. But you could tell that they were very hyped up, and suddenly it was very quiet for the last sort of 10 minutes.
Yeah, it gone from 20-6 in their favor to 27-20 to us pretty quickly. And then suddenly the noise on the sideline was very different. No, it was a fun game. Who had me catching the first GB touchdown of the campaign? Certainly I would have offered 200 to 1 on that.
Well, at the risk of dating this pod, having seen my own team ship 33 points in the fourth quarter of a recent NFL game. Yeah, you need to play the whole game. So yeah, it's good to see the team really going duration, playing at the 40 minutes and not panicking, which really was a theme throughout the course of this tournament. Because following on from the Spain game, or maybe kind of push through some of the group games, that you went through 3 straight further wins against Croatia, Netherlands, and Georgia, and that actually clinched your place in the quarterfinals with a game to spare. So ahead of the tournament, you've got Austria in the draw, the number 1 seed in the tournament. They finished second in the World Championships, second in the previous Euros. What was the mindset heading into this one? Because you almost had a bit of a free swing at this one. Liam, what were your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I mean, from a qualification from the group perspective, there's no pressure there. But yeah, we like the Spain game. We've been preparing for this one since we knew that we were going to have Austria in our group. And much like the Germany game last year at the Worlds, you want to go out there and you want to be able to show that you can compete with, the Germany were number 3 seed in the world at that point, European champions, and Austria, like you say, came into this tournament number 2 in the world, and finished second at the Worlds last year. So you want to be able to show that you can, as a team and as an individual as well, that you can compete with the very best. These guys have been playing together for a decade plus. Their defense, the core of the defense. I think they've got probably the most accurate quarterback in Europe, if not the world, in Felix, and just a really strong offensive and defensive system. So for us, it's can we go and show that we are as good, if not better, than this team? And so that's the sort of mindset we went into that game with.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is a game where it really was a fantastic advert for flag football, whether you're a fan of GB or elsewhere. There's a number of games really to that standard throughout the tournament. This was absolutely one of them. And we saw 3 league changes just inside the final 2 minutes of this game. About 30 seconds to go, Charlie, when you hit Spencer for what we think is a go-ahead game-winning touchdown, and the Austrians, to their credit, come back. They get another touchdown with 10 seconds to spare. So at the end of that, it was a 34-31 loss. But coming out of that, you've gone toe-to-toe with the best, or at least on paper, the best team in the tournament. Did that set you up heading into the quarters thinking you can give anyone a game?
Yeah, so saying what do we want out of the game, for me, every single match internationally is really important. These tournaments are about taking scalps as much as it is our finishing position. Every win is something that is really important. It's like test match rugby. They really matter, even if it's not part of some tournament. Yeah, we showed that we're as good as any team there. I mean, I actually think a lot of our results showed that. But this is something we knew. This isn't, oh, we are actually quite good. We knew this going in. We were prepared to beat them even if we'd lost Spain. That was going to be the mentality. Yeah, fitting. I'm going to point the finger at myself. That was my interception in the tournament there. Cost us. I think it's the only one I threw at the Euros. Yeah, painful on a 3rd and 15. I know in flag football, there are so many plays to swing a game, but, we had a 2-score lead at that point, I think. Maybe it's one where we kind of let them off the hook and we didn't want it to go back to that whoever scores last wins. But that is how it ended. And sadly, they scored last.
Absolutely. And yeah, obviously it's one that you want, let's say you want to win every game, but you still come through that. And then you've got the quarterfinals to look forward to no matter what. So there's,
we knew, we knew it was Slovenia or Denmark at that point, not Germany. And we were happy to play either of them. I mean, not that affected us trying to win. It was just so we know, it wasn't like, oh, this is massive for our draw. Like we were okay with either.
Comfortable with those matchups, but I think that's, I guess maybe that kind of shows how quickly things ramp up in international competition when you are playing multiple games on the one day that you go from, to some extent, a dead rubber against Austria to later on, and I say much later on that day, you then have Denmark in the quarterfinals that evening, which again was an outstanding game to watch. And talk about resilience and comebacks. You already alluded to this earlier. This is a game where Denmark very quickly went into a 12-0 lead, which not where you want to be, but it's something you've seen previously in the tournament. So, Charlie, when you see that position, what's the kind of mood on the sideline?
Well, I alluded to it earlier. I don't want to get into trouble by saying this, but I think we over-scouted. We looked at how they played against other teams and thought they were going to play that same way against us. Our game plan was to take the end. They weren't giving it. Actually, they were giving us over the top, and that's what we needed to go after. And credit to the offensive staff and Nick. Like, we made the adjustments like we did against Spain. We missed the first 2. We come back, score the next 4, or whatever it is. As long as we do that, I'm okay with it. And obviously, an amazing result. Personally, I hate night games. I have this dilemma. I like playing with caffeine, and do I drink some? Do I not? I actually have a big regret from the Worlds in the last 16 versus France, where I decided not to drink any, and we lose 37-36, get knocked out, and never again. So I had a full can of Red Bull at 9:30 p.m., whatever it was, finishing off at 10 versus Denmark, and obviously, no regrets at the time. My sleep wasn't brilliant afterwards, but a really special moment for the team. The way we came together afterwards. My teammate here crying after the quarterfinal in the Euros again, but this time we hadn't just been knocked out by Austria. We've now just qualified, top 4 the quarterfinal. So I think I remember at the time, saying happy tears this time to him, and it was a really special moment.
Yeah, I'll never forget it.
Yeah, and Liam, actually, just on that, as Charlie's alluded to, obviously that the win against Denmark clinched a place at the Worlds. But heading into the game, did that factor into your thinking? Are you thinking that this game's about Worlds qualification, or is it just another step on the way to progressing the tournament?
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned at the start of the show, when you're kind of thinking about expectations, what you want out of the tournament, you do have that goal in mind of qualifying for the Worlds. But when it comes to the quarterfinals, all you're thinking about is that game and that 40 minutes. You're not thinking about what the what might happen or what does it mean if we win or if we lose. You just want to focus entirely on the next play. It's probably a little bit cliche to say, but that's the mindset that you have to be in, because as soon as you start to think about the potential ramifications of the outcome, it starts to affect the way you play. So yeah, that wasn't really on my mind before the game or during the game, but it definitely was afterwards. It was a massive release, I think would be the way to describe it after the game. Charlie mentioned there 2023 losing a quarterfinal to Austria, very close game, couple of points in it, very emotional time. And then after the France game last year, losing to them in the last 16, very similar. It's a close game, one score, 1 point, that one. And yeah, you can't help but, because you just put so much into it physically, emotionally, that you can't help but feel, emotional and cry after a moment like that. So yeah, to have happy tears this time. And I think the manner of it ending, you were probably going to bring it up, weren't you? And I don't want to steal your thunder, Gav, if you want to describe the moment, because we were watching the video that you'd quickly put up on Instagram of that moment on the bus on the way back from the venue as well.
Well, I mean, I think talking about stealing thunder, I think that it's a really interesting point you make there, because watching that game, one of the big stories of this was actually that Ollie had 2 picks in that game, which really helped to fuel that turnaround. So, he really was balling out in that game. And then you come to the end. So for people who maybe not familiar with the specifics of this game, GB, you've got the lead heading into the final play of the game. Denmark are driving to try and tie it up. Conversion might win it for them. And then obviously you make the stop, and it turns out that I think Ollie actually turns away to pump his fist, thinking, yeah, Mac has batted the ball down. That's it, game over. And actually, no, he's running the ball all the way back. So it kind of adds a bit of icing really on the cake of what is a fantastic victory for the team. So you get that walk-off pick 6. I think he actually hands the ball to like an old lady in the crowd.
It was Isaac's gram.
I heard that you had to go and get that ball back afterwards as well.
Well, I let her have a couple of shakes of it, and I thought I better give this back to Denmark in case we get flagged for it on Sportsman. Like, they can't take the score off us at this point, but let's not be
good quarterbacks. Yeah, good quarterbacks don't throw interceptions without premium blitz. Credit that man 14. I promise you. Good quarter. They just don't throw picks unless the blitz is right in their face and making it difficult.
Yeah,
and we had loads of interceptions, so well done, Liam.
Yeah, 3 picks in that game, and you're right, because I think that's blitz. I'm a big fan of the blitz, and just forcing these throws. It's not just about getting the sacks, but making those difficult angles and enabling the turnovers, because they're priceless in the game. And I guess maybe again, that you talked a little bit about preparation already. I think Mac is one who I know puts a lot into film study, like the rest of the team. So actually knowing how and when to jump the route, that's something that really paid off in those moments.
Yeah, and he deserves to get that pick 6, even though he didn't need to return it. But obviously, if you mentioned the Japan game last year, where he needed down at the 1-yard line to then allow us to burn a little clock off before we scored and won that game. So yeah, he deserved to be able to get the pick and return it. But like you mentioned, Ollie, pumping his fist, jumping around, thinking, no, we just got the bat down and the game's over. But you won't be able to see it on the stream, but I've kind of ran off the side of the field celebrating, thinking that, again, Mac has batted it down and we've won the game. And then I turn around and he's just gunning it down the sideline, and I get to go and join in on the celebration. So yeah, that, like I say, that I think the combination of the win with the emotions of a big return like that, and the excitement of that, I think that all added up into that emotion at the end of the game as well. Before we move on from this game, like you said, Ollie had an amazing game and he had an amazing tournament, as did Maka. But I think I want to shout out Aussie here as well, because Aussie didn't play much versus Spain or Austria. he was always ready, but he just didn't get on the field much in those games. And I know, he's a competitive guy. He want to go out there and show his quality in those games, and he maybe didn't get the opportunity. But he was really ready for this game, and game plan wise, let's put Ozzy in, and he did an amazing job in that game in the kind of role that he was asked to do. So a huge credit to him, and a big credit to Isaac as well, who had started the previous games for this game. Ozzy sort of took his spot for this game specifically, and he was the best possible teammate on the sideline, during the games. Yeah, I think it showed the togetherness of the team, particularly the defense as well. Very much a unit and playing for each other, and that sort of personified there.
Yeah, and the receivers were amazing. Spencer Snap's amazing, and Jack actually just took over in that game in particular.
Yeah, Jack was fantastic.
Unbelievable.
Huge
so for me, MVPs of that game were Jack and, but also Liam. You just don't get interceptions without premium blitz pressure, which is what we got. And Jack was amazing. Not just getting open on broken plays, but also like doing smart things like kneeling on the one when we needed it rather than running a touchdown. I thought he just played really, really good football.
I think that's the best game I've ever seen Jack have in a GB jersey for sure.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's one particularly deep one where I think he almost kind of slid in two knees because he realised that's what he had to do just to stop the momentum. But these are things, particularly just with the clock management and flag football, becomes so important.
The quality of teams there is so high that you can't just be really good at one thing. You need to do 100 things really, really well. But the margins are so slim, so it matters.
So, a fantastic result, but not the end of the tournament. So, I guess you've qualified for Worlds, so that's certainly one mission accomplished. But you've still got a semi-final to play the next day. What was the mood in the camp like that night?
Yeah, very happy. To be in a position where we don't have to worry about Worlds qualification the next day. Obviously the medal games are huge, but I would say the biggest game at the tournament was Israel versus Denmark, which was on at the same time as our semi-final versus Italy, because that was the decider for essentially who's going to go to Worlds, I think. Or that was maybe later on in the day. I can't remember exact timings, but essentially, the winner of that goes and the loser doesn't get to go, and that's a year off any sort of major tournaments. And that ended up being a 1-point game, like last play of the game type of thing. So yeah, it was a very happy place to be. But we also knew that we had a game at 9 a.m. the next morning. We'd played at 8 a.m. versus Georgia on the Friday, and then we played against Denmark at 8:30 p.m. So it'd been a long day, and an Austria game in the middle of that. So yeah, having to get rest and get going again, that was the focus.
I think the consolation semi, so Denmark-Israel, was actually the game before our semi-final. So 8 o'clock instead of 9 o'clock.
No.
And I remember Gibson telling me, if we lose to Denmark, I was complaining about 9 o'clock semi, and he said, if you lose to Denmark, we have the 8 o'clock game. And that was all the motivation I needed to win that quarterfinal.
And Charlie, you actually talked about night games and caffeine. So there is, I guess, a point there that it is tricky. That's a 13-hour day that you've just had. Especially
we'd had an 8 a.m. with Georgia. Yeah, exactly. I think the player welfare from the schedule was not good. I think you've got to get more pitches or do it over an extra day. But yeah, you don't want to be finishing 10 p.m. like totally wired, caffeine, adrenaline, and then have your alarm set for whatever it is, 6 o'clock the next day. And you also, we got back to the hotel, let's call it 10:30, we're then ordering food. Nothing in the restaurant. Yeah, and then in bed, not a lot of sleep, like 2 hours. So yeah, it's disappointing.
Well, I guess moving on, because we say on limited amount of sleep and maybe still running on adrenaline. You then went into semi-final with Italy, and we talked about the resilience and the ability of this team to come back, and it didn't quite come off in this one, but very, very nearly did. So Italy were up 3 scores at halftime. Then I think it's 28-7, I want to say, was the halftime score. And then the second half was a furious comeback. So it didn't allow a single point to the Italians. So you pull it back to, I think it's 22-28.
I think it's 26-6 at halftime.
28-6 at half.
28-6, yeah, that's it.
And then 28-22 was the final. So yeah, we didn't concede in the second half.
I think that was one where we just seen, again, the team came back. From watching it in the stream, at least, it did feel like there was a generous PI call that probably bailed the Italians out of you getting a chance to drive for the tie, if not the win. again, it's just, I think it probably speaks to the resilience of this team to put it in that position. Obviously, you were behind at the half, still in any doubts even at that point.
Well,
You knew
this
you had a
game,
difficult task ahead, but you never give up. You never
yeah,
give up at that point. There's nothing in your head that says, well, this game's over. I totally messed up at the end of the first half as well, and they had a Hail Mary that I completely missed the ball, and the receiver caught it, and so they went into the half with that additional score, which, you know, he's thrown it from his own end zone, so it just shouldn't happen. And the worst thing I could have possibly done then is gone heads down, started sulking and blaming myself for that. I've just got to move on and try and go make some plays in the second half. And it was the same for everyone, really. I mean, offensively, we'd have loved to have done more in that first half. Obviously, it's probably the worst half of football offensively we've ever had. You know, especially in a big moment like that. But these things happen, and there's no finger pointing, there's no blaming. You know, it's on both sides of the ball to go then and try and win the game. And yeah, you mentioned the referee decision there, and maybe we're a bit unlucky with that one, but we've only got ourselves to blame, really, in terms of the position that we were in. We've got to hold ourselves accountable for that first half performance. Because if we'd done a little bit better there, then we don't have to rely on a referee decision. And, you know, we got given a touchdown that should never have been given as well in that second half. We should have been given a first down with about 6 yards to go or something. So I'm sure we would have scored, but we got gifted a bit of a touchdown, which then saves a bit of clock as well. So yeah, we can't dwell on a referee decision.
Yeah, well, I mean, I obviously see this game a little bit differently from my perspective. So I don't know how much you can tell on the stream, but like, I didn't play much of the first half. So this is where what I now know is a pretty significant elbow injury had just held me out the game. So the pain in the camp before the tournament and through the tournament had been pretty serious in my elbow, shoulder, and I've been managing it with ibuprofens and paracetamol, just 4 pills every 4 hours through the night as well to kind of try to get back to sleep. And I slightly mistimed half the pills before the game. I only took them 20 minutes before, like some of them an hour, but like the other half a little bit short, and kind of warmed up all right. But in 5 minutes before the game, suddenly just total agony. Like, couldn't throw at all. Didn't really know what to do. I mean, quite a lot of anxiety at this point. And then, you know, first drive, obviously I wasn't functioning. So I just came out, and obviously extremely great job by Joe going in with no expectations pre-game that he was going to play, and, you know, did great. And then the whole time, Ben, the physio, was like mobilizing, doing topical creams, throwing to Ozzy when he was off, trying to get it going so that by halftime, you know, I could go in for the first drive of the second half. So I think it was our ball to start, and we came out, got 8 points. Defense gets a stop. The next drive, we get 8 points again, and defense almost gets the stop. Look, for me, they did get the stop. The Italian receiver fell down on a 4th and long. We get the ball back. How much time was there, Liam? Just over a minute?
Yeah, there would have been plenty of time to drive down and score.
I back us to get 7
XP
points.
to win the game then, yeah.
Yeah, 7 points to win it. I reckon we get that 9 out of 10. We're going again. I'll obviously always think, what if I'd won it earlier? What if I'd taken the pills earlier? As simple as that. I managed the pills a lot better this last weekend in Prague. Just the timing of it and the warming up. But I mean, what if I just wasn't injured at all? Even better. Yeah. So what I now know I have is a partial tear in flexor tendon, the internal rotation on my right elbow, as well as stress fractures and osteophytes in the joint. You know, but I'm getting surgery in a week. It's going to fix both of them, and I'll be back playing in it in a few months. Better than before. But yeah, really frustrating. None of us knew what I had. I mean, I just thought I had wear and tear. That's how I described it. Going to the tournament, it's like day 3 or 4 wear and tear. Maybe if I'd had like a proper diagnosis, could have done things a little bit differently. But yeah, there's no one to blame for this. I think it's a bit. We did really the best we could with the information we have. Definitely the right decision to send in Joe when I came out. Like, it's frustrating because I think, you know, we showed defense getting stops all the time. Offense could score as well. Like, we were at least as good as them. That's how I look at it, and they won the tournament.
And I think that's a really good point because, you know, as much as, you know, I talk about the call and the fact that, you know, perhaps on a different day, the flag doesn't get thrown. The Italians were an excellent team, go on to take the gold medal, and deservedly so against Austria. But I think coming back to talking earlier, Charlie, I think, as much as, as essentially a fan of the sport at this point, it's great to see that the team doing well. And I've never encouraged anyone to play through injury. Again, just, I guess, speaks to your relentlessness to keep going. And, obviously best of luck in terms of the upcoming surgery, and maybe not in GB, but certainly I think there'll be plenty of defences that'll be worried next season in the National Premier with the arm of a 25-year-old coming back.
I've had the tendon test since March, and the stress fractures in the last 2 or 3 months pretty bad. I just didn't really know what I had, and so frustrating. It took a MRI, CT to figure it out, and again, a what if. I could have done something earlier in the year, but
well,
you can't second guess yourself on things like this. Like, did the
absolutely.
best with the information that I had.
Moving on from the semi-final, obviously you then played the playoff game against France. Yes, there was a bronze medal at stake, and the French took it in front of quite a passionate crowd. It has to be said for both the men's and women's games. But the one thing that came out after that game is you finished fourth in the tournament. Words from Nick in the post-game huddle that were shared is proud but not satisfied. And I think it definitely feels like, I guess, a theme from speaking to various different players. I mean, I don't think it's for me to say satisfied or not, because I think we're all definitely immensely proud. But for yourselves, does that reflect your own mindset after this champ?
Yeah, absolutely. Even, when you go back and you have some time to fully reflect on the tournament, watch some tape and just think about it in a bit more detail, have those reflections. Yeah, 100%. I think we can be really proud of how we not only played at the tournament, but how we kind of rallied together. We talked about mental resiliency earlier. I think we showed that throughout the tournament and in numerous games in numerous ways. Very much a brotherhood, as Charlie alluded to earlier as well. And I think, we could be really proud of the way that we came together as a squad with a new head coach and had I think the best ever finish for GB since the start of the 2000s, when it was even, it's a niche sport now, but even smaller kind of sport then, and less countries competing, and obviously qualifying for Worlds as well. But yeah, I don't think you can be ever fully satisfied. I think even if you win gold, you're never fully satisfied, I would say, because there's always probably something else that you could have done better, or you can go on to something else as well. But yeah, the reason we play, or the reason I play anyway, is kind of a few reasons, but the kind of feeling you get, the experience when you're playing in a big game and you're in the flow. And I think, I felt that across the Spain game, the Austria game, the Denmark game, the Italy game, the France game. Even though we lost, 3 of those games, I've never had so much fun playing a sport or competing in those games, like that real sense of flow. And then having those connections with your teammates, with your coaches and the staff, those shared experiences are so important. So yeah, I'm just incredibly grateful to use this opportunity to say, incredibly grateful to Nick and Andrew for giving me the opportunity to pull on the GB jersey for the 3rd time. To my teammates it was such a fantastic experience. So yeah, I think very proud of myself, but also everybody else involved. But yeah, I don't think anyone will be satisfied. I think that's the right message.
And Charlie, I suppose for yourself, is what looks like your 6th and final year with GB. Is that a similar mindset for yourself?
Yeah, I think that team is probably the best GB team I played in. There are a lot of good teams there. And Europe is a very tough continent to play in. I think we could have finished 10th. We could have finished 1st. I think it's that close. I think they're really, really strong teams, and every year the level steps up. And I think we're improving as a team quicker than the others, which is why you're seeing improvements in results. And there are other teams who have had success in the past, and I think haven't felt the need to innovate and improve as much, and have seen themselves fall down. I'm not going to name names, but you can draw your own conclusions as to, let's say, for example, who won the Euros last time. And I think you need to keep the foot on the gas and innovate. And if you're not improving, then you're getting worse, relative to the other teams, because as we get closer and closer to the Olympics, the amount of attention and effort and funding and motivation in these squads is getting bigger and bigger, and it's pretty exciting to see. And like I said, although I won't be playing, I want to support however I can.
Absolutely. And I think that probably leads nicely on to just, I guess, reflections on what comes next, because as say Charlie, we're on the road to ultimately LA 28, and the next stop in that is the World Championships in Dusseldorf. So unlike next set of guests who are very much going into their season, this is meant to be an off season now for the guys, Liam. But is it, with a big 10 months ahead? What's the next few months for you look like?
Yeah, I mean, I gave myself a couple of weeks after the tournament. You need it to sort of deload, decompress, kind of reflect on things. Felt a lot fresher and kind of good for that. Yeah, being back in the gym now, and this is kind of a good time to do some kind of foundational general preparation work in the gym that sometimes you don't necessarily get the chance to do in season because you're kind of focusing on other things. But yeah, ultimately it's mid-August next year is going to roll around pretty quickly. So we're definitely in the mindset of improvement physically, mentally, tactically, technically, all those aspects. There's always room for improvement. And, this team has a huge opportunity to make history in Dusseldorf. We won't know officially until the end of the year what the stakes are in some ways in terms of 2028, a huge chance to make history. And I firmly believe that, the way that the trajectory that we're on, the staff we have, the players we have, and hopefully the talent coming in, that we definitely can do that. But I'll miss that guy there. I'll miss him a lot.
And I maybe put you on the spot a little bit here, because it is going to be a condensed and really high quality World Cup with only 16 teams, or World Championships, I should say, next year. Is there a dream draw for you?
No, there's no one in particular. I really want to play them, or I really want to have them in our group. I think there's going to be 15 other countries there that are all going to be very high quality. It'd be nice to play some teams that are non-European. So it would be cool to play, USA, Mexico, Canada, Australia if they qualify, or New Zealand, China if they qualify, Nigeria, who have qualified from winning the African Continentals this year. It'd be really cool to play some countries we've never competed against before, but ultimately it's kind of, we'll just see who we get, and happy to play. Just happy to be there and play whoever we get. It doesn't matter really. But yeah, to have the opportunity to just play in a quarterfinal, a semi-final, a final in that setting, in that World Championships would be a dream. So that's the goal. That's what keeps me motivated.
It's definitely going to be a bright light, I think, for everyone in the GB setup throughout the winter months. Yeah, I think it gives us all reason to be excited heading into 2026. I know certainly we'll be watching on with great excitement. And Charlie, I'm sure you'll be keenly following and definitely involved in perhaps some other capacity.
Yeah, love to help out. Maybe one or two camps, but I mean, it's the time commitment. It's the main reason I can't do it. So I'll be a massive supporter, and anything I can do remotely to help would be great.
Well, I just want to say thank you to both of you for joining us this evening, because it's been a fantastic conversation, but certainly for both teams, but even reflecting on the men's campaign specifically, there is absolutely so much to be proud of. And I think with the World coming up next year, it's clear that the GB Lions are very much back in that international conversation, which is, I think, fantastic for everyone to see. We look forward to what comes next, whether that's playing, coaching, consulting. Charlie, yeah, it's really exciting time. So just want to thank both of you for joining, and we'll be following you very much intently as the months proceed.
Thank you very much for having us on, Gavin. Hopefully we'll see you at some camps. Hopefully you can make it over to Dusseldorf as well.
Thanks, Liam and Charlie, for joining us. And next up, I'm going to hand over to Sarah. So if you are watching on the YouTube feed, your eyes won't deceive you, as we will magically be transforming into new host and two new guests. But for the meantime, thanks everyone for watching.
Hello, I am Sarah. I am now joined by Women's Team GB quarterback Jess Allen and team captain Grace Conway. So before we dive into their Euros experience, I'm going to briefly rewind to the summer for the World Games in China. As a shameless plug, you can hear a slightly more in-depth review of the World Games with Jess and teammate Hannah Elliott, which you can find wherever you are watching this, essentially. So at the World Games, GB women made their debut and finished 5th overall, beating the host nation China 34th in the playoff. There were impressive wins over Italy and Japan, and narrow losses to Mexico and Austria, and a sense that this team was right on the edge of something special. And that resilience and experience seemed to have carried straight into the European Championship, because just a month later, and you're European champions. So Jess and Grace, thanks so much for coming back on, as you're both now returning guests. Jess, obviously you were speaking to Dan just after the Euros had concluded. But I guess looking back now for both of you, what did the World Games experience give you kind of heading into the Euros? Jess, let's start with you.
Well, first off, thanks for having me on, Sarah. It's great to be back.
Yeah.
What did the Worlds? Wow, the Worlds was such a great experience. I think as my first big international tournament, it gave me a lot of experience. Obviously, I'd never played any other country before. It gave me so much experience that I could carry on into Euros, which obviously helped us. And I think as a team, like, we bonded so much. We spent a lot of time together for 2 weeks. That really helped, and you can see how close the team is and the connections and all the staff as well. Like, it was great.
Grace, do you agree with that? I mean, not going to turn around and say that you hate them all, but
Yeah, last 2 weeks. No, yeah, for sure. Everything was just experience. It was minutes. It was time together on the field, off the field. And yeah, it's actually crazy to hear Jess say that was her first tournament. It still baffles me. We've come such a long way.
I know, watching back, I don't think you would ever believe that that's and obviously it's different kind of playing on a weekly basis and stuff, but then going out and representing your country, there is obviously that weight on your shoulders, I guess. So you handled it really well, obviously, in both times. And I guess kind of when we kind of look back even to kind of pre-Euros, you kind of came into this international season with a new head coach, Jack Reed, which again, I can promote. We have an episode with Jack Reed too, if anyone would like to listen to it. And you've also got a mix of returning and players who are making their debut. Grace, for you, what was the feeling in camp before even that opening game in the Worlds?
Yeah, but obviously there was, from the start of the season, there's been a lot of changes. Obviously Jack was well known within the squad. He was obviously the offensive coordinator, but he brought in a new DC. Some other kind of backroom stuff stayed the same, some changed, and then obviously, like you say, a mix of rookies and experienced people in the teams. It was just getting to know everyone, I think, was the biggest thing. We had a camp and a few tournaments out in Boston prior to China, which really brought everyone together. So it was a lot of building that chemistry that I think really comes through when you watch the games.
Yeah, there's nothing like building chemistry when you're tied to one place together for several days. But I mean, it works, right? You're totally right. You can see it all over. You just can tell. Guys, I feel like when you're throwing, somebody is going to catch it, and you guys know that you're covering correctly. That synergy is really working. So I don't think you would ever know, watching back either tournament, that people are making their debuts. People have this team hasn't fully played together before. It was absolutely magic to watch. Even so much so, through those group stages, you go unbeaten, which is obviously great. And for you, Jess, how important were those early performances for you and setting the tone for what you came to do?
Yeah. I mean, going to the tournament, we had one goal, and I think getting through that group stage was really important. For me personally, the confidence that I got from the group stages. We had tough games in our group stages. We had Ukraine, Turkey. They were really tough games, which potentially we weren't expecting as much to be tough, but they were really good teams. But we came out on the other side, and it was nice to go into the playoffs with an unbeaten record.
Yeah, you just get a kind of builds on that, on the confidence, right? That we can obviously what we're talking about, that you're in it, you're doing it, and it's all kind of working and kind of gelling together. And obviously when we move to kind of the first kind of the knockout rounds, obviously things get a bit hotter. And your quarterfinal against Slovenia is obviously a 51-14 win, which I think is a statement game. Grace, kind of for you, what stood out the most from that performance?
Gosh, yeah, that was Friday Night Lights. It was, I mean, it didn't actually start that smoothly, I will say. If you saw the scoreline, you'd think we ran away with it, but that didn't happen. So it was a lot closer. I actually have to hold my hands up. I made some mistake in that at the start of that game. Had a stiff talking to and pulled it together. I mean, it just shows how quickly a flag football game can change at the end of the day. We were 2 scores down, and I think we scored, so we got a pick, scored again, got another pick, and very quickly it became a much less close game, shall we say.
Yeah, I do think, obviously, if you just look at your 51, you said 14, you go, oh my God, that's amazing. And people don't realise, I think that's kind of the beauty of the beauty, I guess, and the curse of flag football is that it can go either way. Like, you could turn up at any given time and you could have played the team yesterday and you're going to lose to them like the next time you play them, because there's no really, it's not as obvious as that. It's not as easy as saying like, oh, we beat this team before, we can do it again, because it can just all kind of change in an instant. But obviously when you go through that from the quarterfinal and you hit that semi-final, which is against France, which is a different kind of test. Obviously you're on their turf, the home crowds are real pressure moments. I guess, Jess, how do you stay composed late into that one?
Yeah, that was the stupid o'clock time that we played at. Yeah, I mean, that was an incredibly tough game. I think it was probably my toughest game mentally that I've ever had. It was a very back and forth game. I'm pretty sure it was 6-6 at half time. And then like the second half, it like completely ramped up both teams. Yeah, I think it was like 2 minutes left and we were going back on offense and we knew we had to score on that drive. And the French crowds were giving it all, like the whistles, the air horns, like I'm trying to snap the ball in motion Grace and she can't hear me, and like Phoebe and Kate are trying to lip read me. Like it was crazy the sound that was coming on. Like hats off to the French supporters. But I mean, Grace won't say this, but she had a massive part in that last drive. She was coming into the huddle and being like, right, let's calm down. We all know what we got to do. We know where we got to be. She won't give herself credit, but she did do that on the whole drive and obviously caught the definitive touchdown. Yeah, I'm quite impressed with myself, to be fair, of how mentally calm I stayed in that environment. So I was, really happy. The offense did really well.
Yeah, it must be really difficult when it is everything is coming at you from all sides and you're trying to remember, okay, I'm just here to do this. I'm just here continuing to move the ball. That is my goal. And you're going to the sideline to be like, what am I doing? And you're being told, and you're like going back, like, I don't remember what you said. So we're just going to work through it, right? And obviously for kind of you as a captain, Grace, to just come in and be like, right, everybody, like, remember, we're here, we're doing this. We all just need to kind of take a breather. And I mean, yes, you do score that decisive touchdown that kind of seals the win. Do you, and obviously it must be such a blur, but do you kind of remember like what went through your mind when that happened?
Yeah, all I had going through my head was, you're too short on your route. You're going to have to turn around really quickly and get this ball in, because my feet should have already been in the end zone, but they weren't. And I always say this to Jess, not one part of me was expecting that ball. I turned around and I was like, my feet.
I made a second decision to send it to Grace and it worked out.
It did work out. But yeah, that's all I had in my head in that moment was, your feet are short, catch this ball, turn around. Yeah, but like Jeff said, it was so loud. And yeah, she did very well to handle all of the pressures of that game, and the crowd just added to that.
And then it was obviously really not amusing towards the end, but obviously you kneel it out at the end of the game, obviously to go through, like to get to the final. And you all kind of sort of have this moment to be like, are we good? Are we ready to go? And like you can obviously, when you pass the ball back to obviously the referee, and then everyone's like, okay, great, we can start celebrating now, because but yeah, it must have been, just for you, what do you think you remember kind of in that for you to be like, okay, now I'm in the final? Do you like even think about the fact that it's the final, or do you just go, okay, we're moving on to the next one?
Yeah, I think it was just next one, take semi-finals, finals now. Yeah, I don't think it still really hit me of how big the tournament was, and I was obviously winning it. But it was difficult because we had a really good semi-final win. You've got to bring yourself back down, level out, because you know you've got to go out and obviously play the final.
Yeah, for sure. I was also as well, like, Brett was there, who was obviously the previous quarterback for GB. She was there kind of obviously helping, and obviously she was a coach. And I know kind of obviously in that France game, she gave Jess, you a big hug kind of late on for that. Was that really important for you to have her there, just as that kind of, she's been here before, she knows the score type situation?
Yeah, Britt was so helpful throughout the entire tournament. The one point that sticks out to my mind in that France game was before we went on for that offensive final drive, I think I was looking a bit whitewashed, ghost-like, like knowing that we have to score, and Britt kind of like pulled me to the side and was like, you got this, like distracting my brain, and like that was really helpful. Like she's obviously one of the best quarterbacks in the world, very knowledgeable. So there's no one better you'd want on the sideline really to help you.
Yeah, so I get obviously having Brit there, Jess, is just great because obviously she's wore the t-shirt, she's done the experience, and there's no one really better you could ever ask for, I guess.
Yeah.
But that brings us kind of nicely around to the final. So you're obviously against Austria, who are the number 1 ranked side, and obviously this is a rematch. Obviously, you've just played them during the World Games. So Austria come out fast. We are 21-6 down late in the first half. And what is the message kind of among the team at that point, Grace?
There was never a point where I think anyone in that team thought we were going to lose. I remember having my own personal point where I actually didn't realize that it was 21-6 at one point. And I remember kind of looking to the sideline because you couldn't see the score from the player boxes. So at half time, we couldn't see the score. And there wasn't like a big board like there had been in Limerick in 2023. There was a huge board with the sign, so you knew the score. But yeah, I remember just looking across and being like, oh, okay, interesting. We'll see how this goes. But yeah, I mean, the feel within the team, like the halftime talk was very much like, we need to do this, 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 and this, and focus on all of these little process points and the outcome will be what it is. It was never right, we're down, we need to get back. Like, it was just, we all knew what we needed to do and we all believed that we were going to do it.
And Jess, do you think that like that was really a good way for you to handle that, like kind of mentally? Because you're obviously essentially trying to make sure the offense is just steady and is just continuing to kind of move down. So do you think having just that moment of, yeah, we're still here, we're just doing this, we know we can still be in control of it. Do you think that was really good for you, kind of in that mental headspace?
Yeah. And I think we just scored just before the half. Emily obviously caught the ball as she does in the end zone. And then we knew we had the ball to start the second half. So I think that was a nice feeling knowing like, okay, it's 21-13. We start the ball. Like if we score here, we're right back on the money. Yeah. The offense was very confident that we were going to score on that drive.
And then obviously it carries on, and then it gets to overtime. And you stepped up. So Grace, you step up for that conversion that would prove to kind of be the difference in the kind of the final outputs of the game. What goes through your mind when the championship's kind of hanging on to that kind of moment?
It honestly never registered to me. I think the biggest aim was score. And obviously Emily, like we all know she did that. And it was like, right, next thing. So we've scored, next thing, extra point. We need to convert that now, whatever that is. And then we did an extra point that we hadn't really used in the rest of the tournament, actually. So I was surprised when it was called. But again, like there was just it was just go about, do your job. It sounds really cliche, but I never once had this, oh my gosh, like we really need to score, like make sure I run this properly, make sure I catch the ball. It was just do the play. And I think that's credit to how much work we had all put in, like us and the coaches at camps and in all of those games that we played, that you didn't have that moment because we'd done it a million times before. It honestly didn't really register. And even after that, I was like, great, who needs the ball back? Have that back. Now let's go and do the next job.
Now, which part am I doing again? Yeah, but it's just so funny when you kind of saying that because you're just constantly like, okay, this is that. We just move on to the next thing. And I think it's so obvious that that's as the team kind of spirit of that. Okay, we're in it. We're still in it. Even earlier when you're down, you're still in the game. There's never a moment to be like, oh gosh, like we need to kind of come back from it. And that kind of just shows the mental resilience. And obviously we were speaking to Paul again. You can watch Paul's episode if you'd like. But he talks about the importance of staying in the game and staying in the pocket and not allowing any of the outside factors to get involved and just constantly doing what you're doing, because what you're doing is working. You just have to make sure to get it to the next point. And I guess my favorite moment, so I can tell you all, I can tell the whole world this. I am walking my dog during the final. I have a stream up on my phone. I am walking my dog around the place, trying not to scream out loud at any point so people don't think I'm absolutely bonkers, being like, why is this girl screaming, like the football's not on? So what she's obviously having a go about. And when Marta went up and batted down that Austrian pass and the game is over, I guess for both of you, what's the first thing that like hits you?
You go.
Well, we probably had very different perspectives of this because Jess stood on the sideline thinking, please, 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 while the ball's in the air. And obviously I'm on the pitch and genuinely, I've said it before as well, but if you watch that final clip, I am already in the air because I know that Marta is going to get that ball. I know it's hers. So I knew the second she jumps, I was like, that's it. We've just won the European Championships. I had no doubt at all. I knew she was going to smack it however far she needed to into the stands. So yeah, it was like utter euphoria in that one moment.
Yeah, and for you, Jess, because you're like, does it almost happen in like slow motion for you?
Yeah, I think when that ball left Saskia's hands, like just time slowed down. Like Grace said, Marta was the only one that was going to come down. She proved it in overtime when I threw her that long ball. Marta was the only one that was going to come down with it. So when the ball was in the air, I was just like, please, Marta, just bat it away. And she did. And then it just kind of, I think that like a couple seconds after that, it's like, holy, like we've just won. Like we just won the Europeans.
Yeah, there's that. My favorite, if you watch the clip back, like it's my favorite part because like Grace, you're obviously you jump up in the air and then obviously like fall to your knees like, oh my gosh, it's actually happened, and then you're like screaming, and then Jess, you just run over with like arms fully raised, like smiling, being like, oh my gosh. And like every time I watch it, it's so like heartwarming. And again, like I think I woke up half the street, and again, it wasn't even that late, but I feel like somebody might have come out to be like, what's wrong with you, because I'm just like screaming. And like, what do you is there ever a moment, when do you come down from a moment like that? Are you just like riding the wave until you go to bed? I don't even know how you sleep like after doing this. Like, I assume at one point you all just like crashes out at like 2 a.m. when you all go, oh yeah, now it's time to sleep.
Yeah, there was players, they always did like tournaments like that, always tend to do like a closing ceremony or like a players party at the end of it. So we were all at that dancing in the night away. So we fell into bed.
With the medals or no medals? Are they oh yeah.
The medals didn't come off for a while, I will say. We all travelled home in our medals.
As you should.
Got all these random people in not in Charles de Gaulle, that's a lie because we got the train in, what's it called, Gedinon. What's your medals for? Like, what have you won? We were like, wow.
Just the European flag championship, no big deal, like, oh, whatever. I guess because it's still obviously a newish sport, kind of obviously for the mainstream. So you're probably set people and they're going, what's that? What's
100%.
With like what even? And I guess for you get like coming home from that, I guess obviously, I mean, both kind of your outside circle, so people at work or people that you know personally, obviously know what you do and obviously know what you've won. Do people want to see the medal? I mean, I personally want to see the medal. So like, do you have to like bring it in with you to work? Do people are like, wow, at it?
I didn't, no. A lot of people wanted to hear the story and what happened, and they got like this, the BBC had written an article on it, so my work had put it up into like a like newspaper front thing and like framed it for me, so that was very nice. But I didn't carry the medal around with me. No, it is tucked away now after the NFL trip. I don't know about Jess, whether she's strolling around campus with hers on.
Well, yeah, because I'm still at uni, so not at work yet. I don't think anybody wanted to see it, to be fair. Lots of people were interested, and like the Derby press uni office have just contacted me. They want to meet with me and they want me to take it. So I have to do that. But yeah, we took it to the NFL game and that was cool. Because one of the cool interactions we had was we were at breakfast and some guy came up to us and was like, oh, you're the Great Britain flag football team. And we were like, yeah. And he was like, oh, congrats on winning the Euros. We were just in some random like breakfast place and that was kind of crazy.
It was like your first like wave of fame, I guess, almost, to be like, oh, this is what it's like to be famous. But watching the NFL game, obviously just that took place kind of in London a couple of weeks ago, and seeing you guys obviously be invited to it, get to go down. I heard there was a box that we got to sit in. Yep. I heard the commissioner turned up. Yep. All must be very nice living kind of the high life, I guess. What's a box experience like? Go on, tell us.
Is very warm seats. I'll tell you that. Heated seats.
Heated padded seats.
Yeah. Some nice experience. Had to go back to work on Monday, so that wasn't so fun. But
no, it's nice to experience. And I guess it was because obviously the commissioner of the NFL is very kind of flag football focused as well. He obviously wants it to be a continuous thing. And obviously they've kind of obviously helped with the push for it for LA to kind of 2028. And the nice thing as well is he's also very much focused on women's flag as well. It's not just men's. Did either of you have a chance to really kind of like speak to him at all? Or
Yeah, me and Hannah was sat next to him on the front row of his box watching the game, and he was like asking us loads of questions, like talking about 2028 and asking us what positions we played. Like he was genuinely interested, and it was really nice talking to him because obviously commissioner of the NFL and all.
yeah, it's not everybody would get the chance to be able to do that for sure. And I
Yeah.
guess kind of in terms of like personal reflections for you guys, Grace, obviously you missed the 2023 Euros through injury. What did it mean to you personally to be back leading the team to another title?
I don't think there's enough words for that, to be honest. It meant everything to me. It was, Finland was a lot because obviously I worked quite hard to get there. But it always kind of left I wasn't satisfied leaving that tournament, and I didn't know that we'd get to do gold again for the Euros. So it was very special.
And then kind of Jess, obviously on the flip side of that, you've only been playing for 2 years and you're already a European Championship winning quarterback. How surreal has that kind of rise been for you?
Yeah, crazy. The last 8 months have, never. If you'd have asked me 8 months ago, I wouldn't have said that I was on a gold-winning European Championship team. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy to see how far I've come in 2 years. But yeah, proud to be on the team.
Yeah, even like the confidence kind of growing over even the 2 years must be absolutely amazing. It must be like, oh, I can't believe the person I was and the person I am becoming, even the player that you're now becoming. It's special to watch, and obviously it will continue to be special. And I guess for both of you, looking at your team kind of right now, what do you think makes it so special? I know that's a hard question.
It's actually not a hard question. That one's actually quite easy. I think you've probably heard the values that we have kind of established in the team from day one. Some of them coach picked, and some of them the players selected. One of those was obviously unity, and it's something that we worked really hard on from the offset. Both, obviously it's what the coaches wanted, but for a value to work, the players have to uphold it within them and hold each other accountable to that. And I think we all really took on that challenge and completed it. And at the time, me and Ellie put some words into ChatGPT and was like, come up with a slogan for the team. And there was a whole list of them. And the one we ended up picking was actually unite and ignite. And I actually think that's exactly what happened. I think our success came from how well we gelled as a team. So I think that's our specialty.
Jess, do you agree with that?
Yeah, completely agree. I think coming in as a newbie, as Laura, Jock, Hannah, Abby, we all did. I think like coming onto the team, like you didn't feel like you were like left out or a newbie. Like it just felt like you were coming onto this team, this family, and we are genuinely so close, and everyone gets along so well, and like the staff are amazing. You know, Jack's done a great job of building in the value and just making this team what makes it great. And resiliency, that's another key one, because I mean we showed it in the final. Resiliency is a key one for the team.
For sure. Just so special. I guess let's finish with what comes next, because I guess the next chapter starts almost kind of immediately after you finish the Europeans, because the UK women's domestic flag season's already underway, which is now fun because some of you now have to play against each other, some of you are still playing with each other, and obviously that runs through to March. But how valuable is that time for developing chemistry and then even kind of giving your players that kind of valuable experience?
From a domestic point, so from a club perspective, I mean, invaluable from our perspective. We had the highs of the Euros and were quickly brought back down to earth on a very windy field in the middle of London, and we were the first game, so obviously the Panthers played the Cougars. We were just, you'd line up and be like, if you want to run, just run. But I can't cover you today. It's not happening. So yeah, both teams were feeling it. But yeah, from a whole team perspective, we've put in a lot of work this year. Obviously, we've now got Jessica Allen as part of the Cougars, and we have Beth Newley as well, and a couple of others. So yeah, there's been a lot of work gone in the off season, kind of alongside GB stuff. So it's been a very football heavy year, and yeah, I mean the league's invaluable for the rookies to get experience, and at the end of the day it's nice for them to play alongside GB players as well, and hopefully one day some of them might have the aim of being there themselves. So it's nice to be able to see the role models, and that's throughout the whole league, not just within your own team.
Yeah, because obviously the whole point of it is obviously getting players in who have never done it before, who hadn't done it 2 years ago, hadn't done it 6 months ago, and kind of bringing them in and just continuing to kind of show light on how good and valuable this sport is, especially for women, and that everybody can play it. If you don't find you fit in another sport, like football might be the sport that is for you and works for you. I guess really looking ahead on for 2026, because there's going to be another football heavy year for you all, with the Flag Football World Championships in Dusseldorf. What are your, obviously it's very, very early, but what are your early thoughts on that challenge, Jess?
Yeah. Well, I would like to say off season, not off season, but I mean, what is that? No, like, yeah, really working on my strength, working on myself as a quarterback, continuing to develop, and trying to earn my place back onto the team for 2026. I mean, we won gold in the Europeans, but we've got the Worlds to come, and we're not ready to stop at just the Europeans. We're ready to go and prove to the rest of the world we can win.
Yeah. Well, yes, I think it's totally achievable. Grace, are you just looking forward to continuing on the challenge?
Yeah, a lot of football coming up. Like Jess said, what is an off season? We already have a tournament that we know we're going to in January across in the States. So we've got that. And then we've got all the camps. We've actually got a camp in November. So we've got that. And then it'll be Christmas. And then we're in the US.
Back into it.
Camp, trials and all of that. So yeah, there's a lot going on. But I think it's a really exciting time to be a part of the sport. And I will never take it for granted being able to represent GB. So I will work hard to make sure that can still happen. And yeah, we'll see what happens in Germany if we all make it.
Yeah.
Well, here's hoping I'll be there. I won't be playing, obviously, but I'll hopefully be there, obviously cheering on and supporting. And I guess really, really looking ahead. And again, it's all anybody talks about, and obviously it's very, very early. But Dusseldorf will carry, obviously, crucial qualification points towards 2028 at the Olympics, where flag football is making its Olympic debut. How exciting is it to know that what you have built upon this year and this international season could lead all the way to LA?
Yeah, I mean, that's the aim, isn't it? I think anyone who plays their sport for their country, the dream is the Olympics. So maybe more people would want to see that medal as well. But yeah, that's the aim. We went into the Euros expecting to win. Well, not expecting, that's the wrong word, but with an aim to win. That was always our goal. Yeah, the goal. And we go into the Worlds with no other mentality than gold as well. So a medal would be extremely nice, secures qualification, and then you don't have to worry about what comes after that. But yeah, it's just an exciting time to be a part of it. The sport's only going in one direction, so it's a great time to get involved.
Yeah. And Jess, are you kind of obviously excited to just keep building upon and seeing where the journey could take you?
Yeah, completely. Like Grace said, 2028 is everyone's dream to compete in the Olympics. Even when you tell people now, like, oh, we just won Europeans, like we're in flag football, and then you're like, oh yeah, it's in the Olympics in 2028. They're like, oh, really? Like that's crazy. Like I think now it's reached the level of Olympics. It's going to bring in so many more people to the sport, so many more fans, like even so many people watching at the Euros. Like the stadium was completely full. And yeah, 2028 is the goal. I'm just going to keep working.
Again, I'll do my plug. If anybody, you have to have somebody that commentates, because if they make it, somebody has to commentate from their home nation. So listen, inbox is open. My phone number is available. If anybody wants it, they can reach out to me. Jess and Grace, European champions again for Team GB. Thank you so much for joining us. Best of luck for obviously domestic season ahead and the road to Dusseldorf. Even though it's long, may it be as successful as possible. And congratulations again on a memorable European title, which I'm sure is a final that will continue to be spoken about for many, many years to come.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us on and continuing to raise the profile of the sport as well. It's very appreciated.
Yeah.
If you
Thank you, sir.
yeah. If you had told me like a year ago that I would be this invested into flag football, I never would have believed you. If you told me I would have been walking my dog. Actually, you guys don't know this, I don't think, but I think Jess might. Your World Games, I was actually away on a trip with work in the US, and I was up at silly o'clock times to watch your games. Even on my plane home, I was watching them. But listen, if anyone had told me that, that's fine. I need a Team GB shirt in the post. I'm still waiting on my commentary one in the post. So that's fine.
We're slacking. We're really slacking.
It's okay. I can get one at some point. You guys can pick me later, but it's okay. But thank you so much to our listeners and viewers for joining us for this special edition of Tartan Touchdown Chat Show. Please make sure to follow us all across all of our social media channels where we post lots of content from flag football all the way to the NFL. And you can find our previous episodes, which I have mentioned a lot on this, on YouTube or on all of our podcast kind of platforms. But until next time, we will see you soon.